real bad.
Yeah.
So,
Looks good.
yeah, thanks. I like it short. It's much cooler, much easier. So,
I know.
How
I've
long
been
do you want to wait
debating
for more
whether to go or
people?
not.
How long do you want to wait before we start? We're about
Yeah, I
6
guess we
minutes into the hour now. Do you want to give a little more time?
I think we should get going, and people can just jump in because we have a lot to cover.
Okay, you're the boss.
I like your background, Leslie.
Just put it in.
Right on. Awesome.
That's
All
it.
right.
Thank you, Jeremy, for taking the time to do this for us all. We are very appreciative.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. I really enjoy, getting out and staying in and talking to people and talking to the members especially. It's a little bit, it's weird. I think we all can feel that. It's just weird not interacting with people. And by this time, on any given year, I would have probably attended about 6 different regional conferences, visited a half a dozen clubs, and would have had an in-person board meeting. None of that has happened. And so probably like you with your friends and family who you feel kind of distant from, it's just a strange time, It's very unsettling, actually, in many ways. But let's go ahead and get started. If it's all right, I'll just take the helm for a little bit, and then when I get done with kind of the formal things I want to share, we'll switch gears to a Q&A. And those things that I didn't cover that were on the list that you shared with me, we'll go through those one at a time. And then whatever time is left, we can kind of drill down into any other questions that you have. This is being recorded, and I will share the recording with you after the meeting. It's also a good warning, as I remind my staff, that when we're being recorded, just be aware that it's going to be permanent. Whatever facial expressions, if you get up and you're not dressed from the waist down, that's going to be on the video. So just be careful that you're being recorded. It's really important. All right, very good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and I did put together, it's not a sophisticated PowerPoint. So the entertainment is not going to be in the PowerPoint. It's just kind of a guide for our conversation. But let me go ahead and share it. If I can click to the right one. I think that's the one I want. I'm not sure if that's it, but do you see the slide that says FF Dallas?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start with kind of just doing a little recap of the last 4 months. And this is very much a conversation. And so it's kind of fluid, and it changes on a daily basis because, as you know, with your own experience from where you are with regard to the pandemic, that everybody's experience has been slightly different. And I respect that, when we talk about just Friendship Force, your experience as a Friendship Force member may have been very different from what it was like on staff or at the board. But I can tell you that a good place to start is when we came to the full realization here in the U.S. that we were going to hit this pandemic was going to make its way towards us. At the time, I was in Adelaide, which is this beach right here, and I had just gotten done doing the New Zealand conference and the Australian conference. Was spending some personal time with Bobby Mulholland and her family in Adelaide before heading back to the U.S. when things started getting really rough. I didn't know then that was going to be the last conference that we would have for the rest of this year and a good portion of next. And it wasn't until on the plane ride to L.A. from Sydney that they made the official announcement that it was going from an epidemic to a pandemic. And no sooner than had we touched down than I was already getting flooded with phone calls. What is Friendship Force going to do? Because we were facing an unprecedented challenge. It was pretty clear that if this thing were to spiral as it has, that we wouldn't see any journeys this year or next. And that's only the first problem. The second problem was, what do we do with this time? Then the next problem is, how do we recover? And so that's what we've been doing for the last 4 months, is trying to reassess what it is that we need to do. I'm just going to change my screen here so I can see all your faces while I'm talking, because I can't really see you. There you all are. That's great. It's easier to talk to people than just to talk to myself into a camera. It's kind of weird. So in any case, you know most of the story. I don't need to go into the details, because a lot of what we did in the very beginning was we made a commitment to be very transparent with what was going on financially with the organization and what we need to do right away to make sure that we're here when the pandemic ends. Within 2 weeks, we launched the campaign that many of you participated in. And I'm going to hit pause to give a huge thanks to your club as a whole, and to many of you as individuals for being so incredibly generous during the campaign and giving. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. You really helped set the tone for what fundraising was going to look like globally, because it started here in the United States. And your contributions have contributed to a total global campaign of roughly $450,000 to date. $450,000. It is the most money that Friendship Force has ever raised from their members, ever, by a long shot. And I'm going to go into a little bit about what this means, but I can tell you that when we launched the campaign, we were kind of just trying to figure out, how do we convey the message that we need to be here? Everybody is hurting. Everybody's having a tough time. We certainly got our fair share of emails from individuals that felt like our timing was bad, that it was in poor taste to be asking for money during a pandemic, to which we also replied. I made a commitment to reply to every single one of those, and to convey that I'm sorry that we have to do this, but we have to do this. This isn't something that we can just think about and wait and see if something happens. We have to do it. And as a result, I am incredibly grateful to be able to say that because of you, Friendship Force will be here when the pandemic is over. You have helped save the organization. There's no doubt about it. We were looking at closing in August, permanently closing in August. And this is the message that members don't see. They don't hear that message. They don't realize, like, well, my club is doing all right. It's okay. Friendship Force operates on a $1.2 million budget with 15 staff around the world. Now we're down to less than half of that. And to make things happen is a lot of moving parts when you're talking about 7 different languages and 350 journeys and 360 clubs. A lot of moving parts. And without any revenue coming in from journeys, we were looking at a pretty grim picture. So let me kind of skip on through that, because if you've been reading the blog, and I hope that many of you have been following the blog and receiving the newsletter, you will have been getting regular communications from me and from the board and from FFI about what's happening next. And there's been a lot of really interesting developments, or exciting developments as a result of it. But I can tell you, if I were to summarize this without going into what I'm going to share in a minute, it has been an eye-opening experience. I think the board would say that comfortably. Many of the staff, I can tell you emphatically that during these moments when you're challenged in an unprecedented way, and looking at not only how does the organization survive, but how do we reposition ourselves? That term everybody hears now is the new normal. What does that look like for Friendship Force? I mean, talk about just big questions that we have to wrestle with because of what we're dealing with. But as a result, we've been able to see some amazing progress in areas that I didn't think would be possible. And I'm going to share a little bit about that with you now. Okay, so what we've learned in the last 4 months, in summary, one is right now we're doing a tally of, if you can't read it, don't worry, I'm going to share it with you. Right now we're doing a campaign by the numbers. So to be clear, if you haven't given yet to Friendship Force, please do. Even if it's $5, every little bit helps ensure that we can stay in existence during this uncertain time. We're doing a Friendship Force campaign by numbers that will be shared in the next couple of weeks. And it's kind of a summary of where we're at with fundraising globally. You know, how did all the clubs do, all the members do, each of the regions do individually. One of the things that came out of these last 4 months is that our members, that many of you are incredibly dedicated to this mission. And I think that, you know, if you've come to some of the conferences or I've met you individually, you know that this is not a job for me. Well, it is. It is technically a job for me, but it's not a job for me. It is. It's something that I care very deeply about personally. The staff do, the board do, and to know that our members also see that in a way that they're willing to come right out and say, you know, I have one of our first donations before we even launched the campaign was $2,000 from a member in California. And without hesitation, without even us launching the campaign, they said, we know that Friendship Force is facing a tough time. We believe in this mission so much. Let us kind of kickstart what we know is going to be a pretty tough road ahead in raising funds. But we've seen this over and over and over again. I can tell you from talking with other CEOs and other executives of other nonprofits that kind of loyalty and affinity towards the mission and organization doesn't exist everywhere. And in many ways that makes Friendship Force very, very special. And as a result, we have a resource that has ensured that we can survive this, where other businesses and nonprofits really don't. And so I think that just speaks volumes to the commitment of membership. The other thing that we learned is that communication matters. We have been struggling with communication. If you went to Boulder Conference, you know that we talked a lot about how we don't talk regularly with our non-English speaking members, that our systems are very US-centric, very English-centric, and that's okay to a degree, but that we have a lot of work to do in increasing communication. One of the things that we also learned is the depth and transparency of the communication also needs to change. And we knew that for us to be able to raise funds and get through this tough time, we have to put all the cards on the table. And that means, you know, all the questions related to our budget, how Friendship Force operates, how we can be more efficient, things that typically would have been reserved for just a board discussion. You know, we felt very strongly at the very beginning, put it out to the members. We have to let them know this is where we're at. We'll defend our decisions, but it's important that we go on this journey together. And as a result, we've been thinking very differently about how we communicate and how much we communicate to make sure you're a part of what's going on. Very quickly, for the last few of these things, one of the other things we learned is that we had to kind of throw away the old rule book. When you're facing closure and you're looking at kind of scrambling to figure out what do we do, you can't always rely on what you've always done. You have to just kind of venture out and do something different. And that started with just the way that we think about our mission. You know, Friendship Force's mission is more than just going physically on a journey and hosting. We know that it's also about staying connected and developing long-term relationships. And in the depth of those friendships, we've gained even a greater understanding of the world around us. What does that mean for Friendship Force? That means that our mission has wide appeal to people, not only within Friendship Force, but outside of Friendship Force, even during a pandemic, especially during a pandemic. In fact, there was one club that said that came to us saying that they would like to start recruiting new members now because people are, one, they're starving for connection, but two, they're realizing that in isolation, our sometimes narrow views are reinforced with the kind of media that we tap into or the kind of advertisements that we receive with the news. I mean, certainly just turn on the news. And that we need to remind people that there's a whole world of people out there to interact with. So anyways, this is still very high level, but this is the kind of psychological evolution that we're going through. The other is that, what we heard right away, I mean, virtual experiences, if you haven't, we're going to talk about that in depth in a minute. This is something that we should have been doing a long time ago, frankly. When we start talking about what other things can we do to enhance the membership experience in building friendships globally, we know that outside of the inbound and outbound hosting weeks, that you have months and weeks between those journeys where you could be participating in activities to build friendship. And this pandemic has forced us to think differently about how we approach our mission. One of the things that was really encouraging was that so many of you, I say you plural, I mean the membership, were very positive in coming back and saying, what can we do? How can we do this differently? Let us test this virtual experience. Let us be the first to go on Zoom. And that showed us that the membership is flexible and ready to adapt to a changing environment. So that's an important plus. The last thing I said I put on here is evolve or die, and it's actually in reference to it's a T-shirt if you haven't seen it, but it's also in reference to an article that will be in the newsletter that will be coming out either later today or tomorrow, the next monthly newsletter. And essentially it outlines what we already know to be true in other parts of our life, that we have to commit to bettering ourselves and evolving as the landscape around us evolves. And the same is true for Friendship Force. And I think that by really understanding that we can't continue to hammer away at what we've always done, that we have to be open to change and open to experiencing how we do things differently, that we are ensuring our future. We are positioning ourselves to really be stronger because we are adapting to a changing environment. Okay, so let's get into some of the stuff I know you really want to talk about, which is what's going to happen next. And so I'm going to break this down into some highlights of the next 12 months. Now, this might lead to some questions, and we'll be happy to get into it after I'm done talking about it. Any one of these topics would take an hour plus to go over, so you're getting the super high level of what's going on. But the first thing here is we need to continue to nurture good communications. We started with the monthly newsletters. Now we need to evolve that to monthly translated newsletters, and then we need to evolve our blog into a member news page. That's live and interactive. Our blog is okay, but it's a very basic way of communicating. There's much more sophisticated ways that we can be putting information out, and we want to create depth in our communication, and that starts with having an easy way for all of you to be able to log in and access the latest information. Another big thing in the next 12 months is member recruitment and retention at the club level. What you're doing here is what I wish every club was doing, but we all know that not every club is comfortable with video conferencing. And as a result of prolonged distancing from their clubs without any interactions with their club members, there's a real risk of attrition. Or if the club is small, there's a real possibility of closure over the next several months. It's really important that we make an extra special effort to stay connected. And that means even if it's, hey guys, I don't have anything going on this month for an activity, but join me online at this link for a happy hour. And let's just commiserate about what's going on in the world. That kind of just soft, everyday connection is incredibly important. Equally important is the people who aren't here. And there's probably a good number of folks who never log into their computers, never have attended a video conference. And it's really important that we come up with a plan that we are reaching out to those members by phone or, if you can, knock on their door, just to say hello and ask them how they're doing. Some of the clubs have started to do this, and they were surprised that, I don't want to say ashamed, that's not the good word. Surprised is a good word. But they were surprised at how grateful they were that their members were to hear from them because they've been very isolated. And frankly, let's be real about it, people are very lonely. and feeling socially isolated has a real impact on us emotionally and mentally. And so we have a real opportunity to connect with our members at the club level in a way that we haven't done maybe before. And it starts with just picking up the phone and talking to people who aren't on this call. One of the things we're going to be doing so we're going to continue that push, continue to encourage club presidents and leadership to develop plans to make that happen, and then try to come up with some tools to make that happen as well. Other things on our radar is a brand refresh. Believe it or not, last year we actually started the process to refresh our brand. Every 3 to 5 years, it's a good time to kind of step back and say, is our tagline working? Is our font working? Is our brand narrative working? And we had started that process in January and then got cut off, so it stalled out. And but one of the exciting things about the brand refresh is we had been making really good progress in developing ways to talk about our mission. And to give you just a little bit of insight what that means is the buzzwords and the language that resonates with 50 and 60-year-olds today are things like transformative experiences or transformative travel. Traveling not only to make an investment of good in the world, but also to make an investment in myself so that I can be changed. And there's ways of talking about what we've done for 42 years that just needs to be refreshed so that it's more in line with the way that people communicate today. That's what I mean when I talk about a brand refresh. It's not throwing away the logo, nothing like that. Just about changing our kind of appearance and our presentation, and how we talk about our mission with potential prospective members. The other project in the next 12 months to go deep with volunteer leadership. We recognize, I say we, the board, the staff, frankly, but myself, have had long conversations about what we should be doing to create more opportunities for volunteer leadership between the club and FFI, where, and the field reps have been a really important part of that process. But there's so much more that we could be doing. So many members have reached out saying, I used to be in marketing, I used to be in finance, I used to be in logistics and operations. I'm a really great communicator. I can be a keynote speaker if you want. And we just haven't really tapped into that resource. And I think that there's, we talk about how do we grow in the future, all the resources is right here. The only thing that's stopping us is really thinking through a way to find places where our members can fit in, and where your gifts and talents, if you want them to be shared, have a place where they can really help the organization move forward. And frankly, we haven't done a very good job of that. It's been clubs, it's been FFI, and it's been 38 field reps globally who've been shouldering a lot of work, but we can be doing a whole lot more. And I think that now is the time, while we have this moment to breathe a little bit, to think about some of the things that have not gotten the attention that they need. We also are, over the next 12 months, you'll be hearing some conversations through the newsletter, certainly, and maybe some online events. We're going to talk about different ways that we interact. And there's an undercurrent of journeys and connections that happen at Friendship Force that are quote-unquote off the books, that just naturally happen because we have been in Friendship Force for years and we have friends all over the world. It may be time that we start formalizing these things. And when I talk about, what I'm talking about specifically are shorter journeys with lower numbers of members. So maybe a 7 to 10 person journey that will go for a 3 to 5 day stay with a club. That could be much more accommodating, especially for some of our smaller clubs in remote places. I'm also talking about individual hosting, opportunities for members to connect with other members around the world and come up with their own kind of mini experience together. Many of our members are already doing this. It also means continuing some of the things that we're already doing, the virtual experiences, virtual events, and we've also begun to do some work with some clubs in Japan around English learning experiences and doing some pen paling exchanges where members can help other members with their if they want to learn a new language and also develop friendship at the same time. So these are all kind of ideas that have been simmering in the background, and now we're kind of saying now's the time to push all these things forward because we don't know how or what the world's going to look like when we begin to open up. And having a lot of opportunities for people to connect outside of big groups traveling might be the best way forward. So I think it creates more opportunities for individuals to have a friendship building experience. Okay. Oh, slideshow. Well, you know what I wanted to do was migrate from the develop virtual experiences over to, let me see if I can figure out how to do this to show you the virtual experiences page. And how do I stop? There we go. Stop share and screen share, because one of your questions was, can you access the virtual catalog from the main website? And the answer is yes. But it's a little bit of a trick just because we're using a website that needs to be updated and connecting it to a blog. All right, can all of you see the Friendship Force main page?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this red banner at the top is something that we had our developers kind of put on at the very beginning. And the two main links there are one to the donation page, and the other one is to the Learn More. The Learn More will take you to the blog, and we're going to have to change the name on there. I think we need to make it more clear that this is where the blog is. But if you go to blog.friendshipforce.org, or you click on the Learn More at the top of the main page, it will take you to the news page for Friendship Force. Now, when you get the newsletter that comes out monthly, all those articles are linked, most of them anyways, are linked to this blog. And if you wanted to, you can scroll through the blog. In fact, you can even get a preview of all the things that are going to be in the newsletter because they're already live on the blog. And right there at the top right, we're going to be changing this in the future. It's going to have a big button that says Access Here. But for right now, it says Friendship Force Virtual Experiences, Access FFI Virtual Experiences. You click anywhere in this area here, and it will take you to a page that was developed There we go. It's a little slow. All right, so this is the Friendship Force Virtual Experiences, okay? And if you haven't been here, at the very top, it talks about 3 different types of experiences that you will see. There's virtual journeys, there's a learning space, which is kind of training and how-tos, and then there are opportunities to just connect with your members. And those are the kind of the logos. Now, if you want to learn more about it, there's a little PDF that explains those in more detail. Then you can scroll through, and you can see that tonight there's one on what to know before heading to Mexico, fun facts and more. And it's being hosted by the Friendship Force of Tuxtla, and Emily, who is our field rep in Brazil, will be on the call. There's a little overview here. And you can click this button down below, and it will take you to a registration page where you register to attend that virtual experience, and then it will send you a link in your email for attending, clicking and joining the Zoom. It's a Zoom webinar is how it's set up for a big meeting. But if you go through this, you'll see that there's a lot. This is a new one. I don't know why we have this up, but that's okay. The Friendship Force of Bogota. Okay. Anyways, live performance by Eddie Cabrera. Let's go for it. So that's coming up. Some of our staff are doing some hosted training, ones here on global journeys. And some of these are repeated because they're in different time zones. So we repeat the same one so that the folks on the other side of the world can also attend.
Trying to figure out how to get to my.
Yeah, we have to reduce that.
I know, and I can't see how I can.
Yeah. Let's see here. You'll also notice if you scroll through this that there will be journeys, virtual experiences posted by other clubs and other staff from other parts of the world. So if you can read German, go for it. You're welcome to attend this conference. Be mindful of the time zones at the top. The time zone of when this is in. So there is actually a little convert time zone button on each one of these. So if you ever want to know, like, okay, well, what time is that for where I'm at? You click on that convert time zone. It takes you to a page. Actually, let me see if I can just do it real quick without losing it. There we go. It's a world time buddy. So this little widget tells you that this is at 7 p.m. Central European summertime, and it knows that your computer is in whatever time zone you're in. I'm on the East Coast, so it would be 1 p.m. for me. So wherever you're at. Now you can scroll this and add other time zones if you're going to be someplace different when this takes place. Kind of a cool little feature. What's really cool about these is you don't have to participate. You can just kind of mute yourself and watch and just absorb the information. They vary in sophistication. We have some people who are super fantastic with their Zoom presentations, and then we have some folks who are like, I just want to share my skill. It may be a little rough around the edges, and that's okay. And that's what Friendship Force is about. It's about just being able to get out there and make it happen. So anyways, you'll see some of these other ones that are on here. It goes on and on. A lot of these have been added over the last week, and you might find a couple of the other very interesting to you. Okay.
There are pictures up there. I think.
I'm going to tell you that's probably one of the most exciting developments in the last couple of weeks. All right, so let me stop that.
Oh, he's got a professional background behind him.
Yeah, you would
He's got it going too.
Just so you know, if you're unmuted, I can hear you, and so can everybody else. I was in a call. About a month ago, and we must have had 30 or 40 people on, and we thought we had muted everybody. And somebody couldn't get their computer to work, and they started cussing like a sailor. And it was everything you could do not to laugh hysterically. They were like, "This son of a rah, 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 rah." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's not muted. We couldn't find the person." But you learn that lesson once, right? Maybe once, whatever it is, maybe twice. All right, very good. Well, if it's okay, I can approach this any number of ways. I can answer questions related to what I just shared, or I can go through the questions you've submitted and then circle back. I guess I'm looking to Carolyn for a little bit of guidance, but you're fine either way. And you're muted.
There you go. Okay, if you would start with the questions, because those are the things that seem to be the most pressing issues right now.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that. Okay. So the first question was around, now that countries are opening, will FFI allow journeys between those countries to meet the criteria for travel? How can FFI manage these journeys moving forward? There is the first thing I got to tell everybody here is that this question is a question that we get all the time, emails, conference calls, meetings, and I have to start by saying we don't have a crystal ball, and I really wish I did. One of the most frustrating parts about this pandemic, one of many frustrations that we're all experiencing, is that we don't know what's going to happen next. And when it comes to the travel, we've been monitoring 100 different articles and government websites trying to gauge what does travel look like international over the next 6, 12, 18 months, and it's all over the map. You start with, first of all, you start with what the U.S. thinks is going to happen, and then you have the rest of the world. And I won't get into the politics of that, but But it's interesting how varied the perspective is on what travel looks like. I can tell you that what it might likely look like is that there will be travel bubbles, and that there will be countries that will group together to allow travel, and then they'll exclude travel from certain countries, specifically those obviously that have rising cases of the virus or are behind in implementing a vaccine or a treatment when that becomes available. A great example of that is in New Zealand and Australia, where they are working on an agreement where they will be able to travel comfortably between those two countries, but then they will maintain their restrictions outside of those that region. And the same thing is happening in parts of Europe, and I imagine that we'll start seeing that happen in other parts of the world as well. The big question mark is not so much when do we feel comfortable traveling again, it's when will governments allow us to travel. And there are a whole list of ways in which governments are restricting and trying to keep their citizens safe by restricting certain travel and certain types of travel. And so when we talk about planning for the future of friendship force, all we can do is kind of throw a dart 12 plus months out and then continue to monitor it on a weekly basis. When we developed the budget for how we were going to survive the pandemic, how we were going to survive going into next year, it was with the assumption that we would not start seeing travel until the third or fourth quarter of 2021. And if we needed to, we could stretch the budget and make further reductions to staffing that would ensure that we would survive until 2022. That was really important that we position ourselves to be able to weather whatever it is that comes our way. Now, what I believe will happen is that we'll start seeing domestic journeys pick up, possibly by the end of this year, although I doubt it, but most likely at the beginning of next year. And then we will start seeing globals before we start seeing club-to-club journeys. And we'll start seeing some globals in the second and third quarter of next year. And the reason for that is it's much easier to cast a wide net to fill up hosting from around the world than it is to bank on one club being able to supply 15 to 20 ambassadors to come in. And in fact, that may be what I encourage clubs to do, is to think about, converting their existing inbound into a type of global where they allow a group of countries or a region of members to participate. The other reason for that is I believe that there will be members who are very comfortable and eager to go. In fact, we have a lot of members who are saying, I don't care about the COVID. I want to travel right now and go visit. I'm like, that's very nice. I'm glad that you want to engage with the world. I don't think the rest of the world agrees with you, but I think that's great. And then we have members on the other side of the spectrum who are saying, I'm not stepping foot out of my house until there's a vaccine. And I think that psychologically, even before we have a vaccine, we'll probably have treatments that are in place, that it will be individual assessments on how they feel about traveling. So even if a club is connected with another club and the travel restrictions are lifted, you still may have a hard time getting members, recruiting enough to go on that journey, because people psychologically aren't ready to step out into the world yet. There's just too much uncertainty, or we just don't know what's going to happen. And so we have to also plan for that. We have to plan for the possibility that we'll have our eager adventurers ready to get out and travel. But we also may have a lot of people who will say, yeah, I think I want to wait a few more months before I get on a plane. So what we're doing, what Kimberly has been doing, is a lot of scrambling to try to move 2020 journeys to 2021, 2021 matches to 2022, and then also trying to accommodate, the narrow windows that are between hosting and traveling on outbounds. If you've gone through the matching exercise, it's a very difficult process with lots of variables. But if you look on the blog, there is a couple of communications from Kimberly where she explains exactly how we're approaching journeys and the matching moving forward. As far as trying to predict, getting back to that crystal ball about what's going to happen, there is a blog post that we're putting together, and what we're trying to do is pull all the articles that people have sent us and that we have been researching into one place. It's interesting to see what the predictions are for international travel from Germany versus what they are from the United States or Canada, or in Japan for that matter, or in South Korea. And and I think that the best that we can do in that, short of giving a really good, guidelines and an answer about when things will pick back up, is to put those resources in your hands as well, so you can try to help, cull through it with us and try to form your own opinion about what's going to happen. I did half joke with the board last week that maybe what we should do is put together a Friendship Force travel sanitation kit that members can purchase, and it has a mask, and it has a sanitation bottle and an aerosol spray, and maybe even one of those bubbles that you can walk in when you're going through the airport. The issue isn't so much whether or not it's safe where you're going and it's safe where you are. It's getting there without getting exposed to something, and I think that's going to be the challenge that we have to overcome. But I imagine over the next few months, especially, that we'll all begin to see a little bit more clearly about what the path ahead looks like, and you'll definitely be hearing from myself and the board about recommendations on how to approach travel moving forward. Any questions more about that, or? Okay. How about, okay. Yeah, and so as far as the standards and guidelines, Friendship Force has very rarely, if ever, told clubs they cannot travel or cannot go on a journey. It does happen, but it does not happen very often. It's usually only if there's no way that we could see you going there and not being in a safe position. But Friendship Force has had a long-standing soft policy of encouraging the two clubs that are supposed to be connecting to talk. And I can't stress enough that what you need to do with your inbound and your outbound is to monitor the government website of the country that you're connected with, monitor your own country's travel advisories, and then have a conversation with the other club about what they're seeing and what they're feeling, and walk through the logistics. Because there's nothing that can come from headquarters that can tell you whether or not that you should go forward with that journey. It's an individual decision you have to assess for yourself with the information that you have on your specific match. All right, well, FFI issue got, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Question?
Yeah.
Okay. I think my question regarding any journeys of any kind is the long timeline. I mean, according to the old rule book, we were always encouraged to start working on it a year ahead and start getting volunteers, and and it would gradually pick up speed towards the actual journey itself. I'm thinking in this time, and probably in the future, we might need to be a little more nimble.
Yeah.
And just be willing to be flexible, because I don't, you can't think a year ahead because we don't really know. And I think that will be something we need to think about when it comes to planning journeys. We're going to need to be able to get our stuff together, get organized, and get it done within maybe even a 3 or 4 month period versus the old year time span.
Yeah, you make an excellent point. And, part of, going back to some of this work at the beginning, when I talked about the different ways that we might see journeys evolve, part of it is for that purpose, to be more flexible in being able to go on a shorter notice in putting together a journey. It's hard to recruit 20 people to go for a 4 or 5 day journey at the last minute, but you might be able to recruit 5 or 6 people to go who want to take advantage of a good airfare and a hosting club is ready to take you. Yeah, I think you make an excellent point in the nimble piece. What I would recommend is that whatever you decide to do and how you approach being flexible is figure out what that deadline, that date needs to be when either deposits become non-refundable or airfare becomes too high to be able to purchase, and decide in advance. We will go here or here, but it has to be, our drop deadline, it has to be on this date. And if we pass that deadline, then we're going to miss that opportunity. And I think that's kind of been the advice for all these things with the next year to 2 years of journeys, is you want to begin planning now for that match, even though we might not be able to see that go through, because who knows where we'll be in March of 2021. You might have to postpone it again. So when do you call it? When do you say that, okay, we're going to postpone this? So you have to kind of reverse engineer your journey to figure out when that first date is that you make that decision. But I couldn't agree with you more. I think being flexible and nimble is absolutely imperative in how we move forward. Good point.
Jeremy, this is Jim Kerr. In
Hi,
addition,
Jim. How's it? Good to see you.
just fine, thank you.
And I see that you haven't cut your hair either for a while.
No, and it's also a little whiter than the last time we were together.
Yeah, that's all right.
I'm using Smile Amazon considerably because I make a lot of purchases that way. Are there other indirect methods of contributing to Friendship Force?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have Amazon Smile is the only nonprofit connection that we have, and being able to help in that way. We have a lot of suggestions on products that people have said that we should start selling. An online merchandise for routine things that we might be able to help members get a discount, and then Friendship Force gets a kickback. And I want to say let's hold on that question, Jim. We wanted to get through the campaign first before we start introducing other revenue generating ideas, but I love that you're interested in looking at some of those things with us. Okay, the other question was, will there be guidelines for hosts to follow when they're able to open their homes? Actually, in the next newsletter, if you go to the blog right now, there is our first attempt at sanitation guidelines for keeping your house clean and tidy for your members, for your guests, excuse me. And that's our first step in kind of trying to provide some guidance in how to do these things. The thing is, most of our members, if not all of them, they know that you want to have a a clean home and a clean place for them to stay. And I think it's taking that extra step to to adopt some of the sanitation guidelines that we've all been following these last few months into our home hosting experience. It's probably a good idea in general that we do these things. So yes, we've already issued one set, and we're going to continue to issue more as we get going down the road. Will there be additional health requirements? We've gotten this question before. There are some clubs who even now are saying they might mandate that people be vaccinated before they visit, or that they self-quarantine for 2 weeks before they visit. And I think that these are really good ideas, although I hope that you wouldn't be visiting when you're in it during a time when you need to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. And vaccinations, I would say keep an open mind, but this is a club decision. This is a decision that you would have to make at your level. What do you all feel comfortable with? Where do you want to draw that line? Do your research. I would dissuade you from making a black and white decision about it has to be vaccination or you can't come without fully assessing all the options, okay? So if you're all vaccinated and there's viable treatments out there, but you have somebody coming from a place where they haven't been able to get the vaccinations, but they haven't had any cases, is that going to put you at risk? Is there potential where you could be flexible with that? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I think that we're still a little bit too early before we make up those policies. FFI will issue guidelines to that effect of what I just said, although we said a little bit better. But it will be a club decision about what it is that you want to set for your health requirements coming in, as it always has been. Okay, well, shifting gears here, it looks like we're getting into some of the questions about the federal loans, other loans and grants, and that sort of thing. So the short answer to the question, has Friendship Force applied for any government assistance, is yes, we have. And we've received government assistance. Friendship Force received 8 weeks of the equivalent of 8 weeks of operating from the CARES Act Paycheck Protection Program. We were one of the few nonprofits to actually receive it, and that what that ended up doing for the campaign is it allowed us to extend the campaign or our sustainability well into 2021. It essentially added to the campaign because it was money that we didn't have to spend out of raised dollars to fund basic operations. That's the only government grant or loan that we received. That loan converts into a government grant after we provide paperwork that we kept our staff employed during the 8-week period where we received the funding. I really would love for the U.S. government to make another investment and make it another 8-week investment into nonprofits and small businesses, because I think that as we go into the second lockdown, we're looking at another. This is adding more time that people are away from work. So, anyways, outside of the United States, we've also received government assistance through employment support programs that have been available in Australia, in England, and in France. Not in Germany, but England, Australia, and France, where our staff are located there. And so we have benefited from not having to pay as much for those staff, even though there were reduced hours. We even got further discounts or relief from having to pay them because of their local government's support. And that also has contributed to the campaign. It's funding operation funds that we don't have to pay out of the campaign dollars. So we continue to look for those loans and those grants. If any of you know of any loans and grants that you want to send my way, please do. We have pounced on all of those, and part of why we were successful in securing the U.S. government grant was because we didn't hesitate. As soon as they announced it, we were knocking on our bank's door saying, here's our application, what else do you need? Let's make sure we make this happen. Any other waves of financial support we'll definitely be pursuing. Okay, and I think that was all the questions. I talked about the virtual experiences online, and I talked about the future of programs, more or less. One thing I didn't talk about was probably the next big project that we're going to be facing in the next several months is a global registration of members. And I think I can go ahead and just share it with you, share a little bit of that with you now ahead of a formal announcement. One of the biggest disconnects we have, we don't know who our members are. I say we, headquarters does not have a relationship with members. You have to opt into the newsletter, or you have to be dependent on your club leadership to have information sent your way. But it goes more than just the communication. It's also about your ambassador application. It's about making sure that people who are traveling with Friendship Force are good people, that they don't have a history. And we have never had a way of being able to ensure that level of safety in traveling. So we're working on an initiative right now where members will, in the near future, have an opportunity to register directly with Friendship Force, establish your communication preferences. You'll get a virtual Friendship Force ID card with your unique member ID number that you will use for all of your financial transactions with Friendship Force. And it will be a way of being able to archive and track your engagement with Friendship Force and track your membership. There's a whole lot more to it, of course. I'm just kind of giving you a teaser there. But we're definitely taking advantage of this opportunity to grow, and we have some growth that we need to do, so we're going to make it happen. All right, well, I've been rambling here for just less than an hour, and hopefully some of that was worth sharing. It's a lot to condense that down, but I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that you might have.
Anybody?
Thank you, Jeremy. That was very informative.
All right,
I have a question.
I think Marcia had a question.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me, Jeremy?
Yes.
I got the information about the cruise, which I thought was real early, since we aren't even sure which ships are going to be in there. I'm afraid to put any money down. I don't know if the ship's going to be there or not. So I just was a little concerned about the timing of the cruise.
Yeah. Marcia, just put your money down. Don't think twice about it. Just put your deposit down and let's go sailing together. No, we got it done. Well, so let me tell you a little bit about the cruise, because boy, it was one of those things where like, oh gosh, this is not a good time to be promoting a cruise. But we had to cancel the last cruise, and we have these credits we have to apply to a future cruise somewhere. So that was one thing. The other is that they had this unbelievable sign-on opportunities. Like if the world has a vaccine by then and people are eager to get out, I don't think you'll ever see cruise deals like the ones that you're seeing right now. But the good news is that it's all fully refundable, and we made sure that if you want to take the risk with us and seeing if, hey, you know, I might want to go, or if I don't, that's okay. I can just pull the plug. You won't lose any money. So I would encourage you. I have no idea. I mean, my emotions on a daily basis with this pandemic. Yesterday, you know, doom and gloom. Today could be high again. Tomorrow will be doom and gloom. I don't know how I will feel about cruising in January of next year, but I like to have options. So, yeah, I recognize it wasn't the best timing to be promoting a cruise, but we had to do something since we canceled that last one, and that was the best thing we could do.
Okay,
I have an itinerary, but yeah.
I have a second suggestion. Dallas Club had a YouTube on the recent outbound that we did to Iowa, and it was excellent. And I think if other clubs knew about the YouTubes and they were thinking about going to visit a club in the United States, and they saw a video of what that club was able to produce for us and where we went, that it might interest other clubs in going there. So if there is a way that the YouTubes from various clubs could be put onto your website so that people could access them, I think it would generate interest in taking some of the local United States exchange.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. I'm going to write that down. And YouTube videos and adding it to our library.
Could I speak? We had a survey that we put out of what we are interested in right now and what we could see for the future. And I just think that an exchange, a virtual exchange with different clubs would be great. You know, like if we went around Dallas, we have lots of photographs from our trips, and we know what we put out, and then we could maybe meet up with another club on Zoom, and they could put out interesting things around their area, like our Iowa program that we had, and then we could all discuss it. And I think this pen pal thing sounds great. You know, if you could start communications with different clubs around.
That's great. In fact, you know, if there's a link on there, you'll see it in the newsletter as well, that invites clubs to host their own virtual event, and we will help you promote it and put it on the catalog. So if you wanted to put together an agenda where you took people on a tour of your city and maybe, you know, some introductions of your members and some talents that maybe some of your members might want to share virtually, that would be fantastic. I think it'd be really nice. We have the journeys that the webinars that have been taking place, we've gotten no less than 30 or 40 people on these calls. And the most we've had so far is about 120. And they come from all over the world. I'm surprised when people log in at midnight their time just to be a part of whatever it is that's going on. So yeah, I would say go for it, Kathy. Work with your club, get something on the radar. We'll be happy to help you host it.
Several of us had a problem getting on the webinar, the Brazil one. Is there a limit, or what's the?
So, you know, chalk it up to, I know about that issue, and that was the first one of the first ones that we did.
Mhm.
And it's been a learning curve for us to get these things right. One of the issues with the Brazil one was that we had a limited capacity on our account. So if you weren't one of the first people there, you got booted off the call. We have since increased that up to 500 participants in a meeting.
That sounds
So
sufficient.
I don't think that will be an issue anymore. We've also learned how to use the webinar feature. So there's a difference between having this meeting and then actually hosting a webinar.
Mhm.
And a webinar is almost like a mini conference, and you have a lot more control over who speaks and when they speak, and then who can be in the audience. And then essentially the audience are people that you just log in and you can see what's going on. So we're going to become Zoom experts at Friendship Force. But that Brazil, like any other ones, we have some learning opportunities we had to work through.
Jeremy, this is Sandy Kaiser. And how are we doing with your staff? Have you lost any of the staff or have to furlough any of them?
Yeah, we have. We started this year with about 10.4 FTEs, full-time equivalents. That's how you measure how much staff you have. Most of our staff are part-time, so the best way to measure how many staff you have is in full-time equivalents. Right now, we're operating at half that amount. We lost one staff member. We have two staff members that have been furloughed, and we're on furlough, and everybody, so yes. But we have made it our goal to keep our staff in place the best we can. The government programs outside of the U.S. have been very, very helpful. Everybody is precious at Friendship Force. They bring so much talent and ability. It's unbelievable. I'm so grateful to be working with them, and they're a huge resource to the clubs. And my biggest fear was losing our staff during this. But we've been able to retain nearly all of our staff, and but not without bumps and bruises.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask a question? Or actually, I wanted to make a comment. Kathy Ignatian mentioned the survey. We sent that out probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've received responses from about 40% of the club. We're now going to approach those who have not replied for whatever reason and on a personal basis and see if we get some more responses from them. And something we're asking on this survey, it's a very simple survey, but one question we're asking is about their Zoom skills regarding whether they can use it, et cetera, and also if they're not, if they don't feel comfortable, offering training. So I would really like to try to get as many as our members as possible comfortable with using Zoom, because I can see that for the next, could well be another year or more, comfortable with the technology of using something else other than simply talking face to face.
Yeah.
And that way they can also join in, if we start doing virtual meetings with other clubs and things like that, they can join in with that. And I'm sure they would enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some pre-recorded trainings for Zoom available. And if you can't find them on our site, just email me and I'll make sure that they get over to you. That might be a help. I also wrote down a note while you were talking because, inviting people to a Zoom training, they have to know how to click on the link to go to Zoom. So it's kind of
It's a little bit of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it is. But we do.
I got in at the very beginning. Usually I'm 30 minutes by the time I get in, but I got into this meeting at 1 o'clock, so I'm improving.
That's great.
The video that Chris Smith did was excellent, and it was at a level that I could even understand. So if I can understand it, most people can.
Now, which video is that, Sandy?
It's on, I think it's on the website, isn't it, Jeremy?
Yeah.
The link to Chris Smith's YouTube.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll do whatever we have for resources. All right. Are there any other questions I can answer for any of you? Well, I'll just say as a kind of a way of wrapping up, please don't hesitate at all ever to email or call me directly, frankly, if you have any questions about anything. If you want to do this again, or if you have more questions that you wish you had asked after this meeting, send them my way. I will write them back to you, and then you can distribute them to your fellow members. This continues to be an evolving thing for all of us, and I really appreciate your not only your monetary support, but your support in general for the Mission of Friendship Force. And I really do believe we need to be here when this thing is over. And I think we're going to be stronger for what we're going through right now. And I think we're going to be better in so many ways. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the immediate future, but I'm very optimistic about the long future. And I hope that we all can stay safe and get through this together and see each other in person real soon.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you much.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank
Be well. Stay safe.
All right. We're going to close out. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Well,
Bye.
Bye.